Man, that thing needs a bit of grease. Anyway folks, hello to you all, and I hope you're all still in good health and strength, hey. The property I'm at this morning is a large meal store and supplier, and the owner of the property messaged me lately asking if I could come down and help sort out a problem with corvids, as there seems to be an increasing number of magpies and jackdaws about the property. Now, the birds seem to prefer picking up pieces of meal off the concrete yard just outside the shed door. So, since there wasn't really anywhere in the yard to set up a hide, I asked the owner if it was okay to open the shed door 3 to 4 feet so that I could sit inside the dark shed and shoot the birds in the yard as they landed outside. And he said no problem, great idea. So I arranged to come down the next Saturday morning at first light, where, even though it was still semi-dark, I already found quite a few magpies and jackdaws in the yard outside the shed. So I quickly set about getting myself all set up, with a nice comfy camping chair to sit in and a Vanguard Quest tripod to shoot off of, before setting up a dead jackdaw that I shot here one day before into a little wire cradle that I make and set it out into the yard. A little handful of meal, not only to help entice the birds down, but also to help camouflage the lead base plate on the little wire cradle that I made. All I needed to do now was get myself sat down and comfortable in the dark and get the rifle loaded up and ready to go. And talking of rifles, I'm using my John Bowkett blueprinted BSA Super 10 in 22 caliber, running at about 15 foot-pounds of energy with the 15.89 grain JSB pellets. The scope is a Nikko Stirling Targetmaster 4-16 by 44 with LRX reticle, and I'm running a Virach silencer up front. And thankfully, I only had to wait a few minutes for the first bird to arrive. That's the first one in the bag. And, with typical magpie style, a second one landed very shortly after, and he was not a happy camper. The first shot did look good, but it ran up in behind the hedge, where I thankfully got a second shot off and finished the job. Well, I've only been here 5-10 minutes and I've already got 2 birds in the bag. But the rest of the magpies outside were still really wound up, and it wasn't long before a third one landed. Another heart and lung shot, and the bird again ran just out of sight before dropping dead. Once the ruckus outside had calmed down after a few minutes, I decided to go out and lift the 3 birds I just shot. Once I'd lifted the 3 magpies I just shot, I decided to move the jackdaw decoy about, just to give an impression of movement really. Now, I'm sure it was a good half an hour before anything else appeared, and once it did, it was a couple of rooks, which is something I wasn't really expecting to see, but they definitely were here to get something to eat, and they are on our general licences here in Northern Ireland for the protection of foodstuffs for animals, so I wasn't about to let the opportunity go to waste. They're just as big and strong as a hooded crow, so this time I decided to go for a headshot. I decided to quickly nip out and lift the bird, as I thought the sight of it would put off any of the others from landing, but it might have been a mistake, as there were still quite a few jackdaws and magpies about the yard before I dodged out from below the shutters. I also took the opportunity to set up one of the magpies I'd shot this morning as a decoy, hoping that that might get the birds to land again. But it wasn't to be, hey. Even though it started out as quite a good morning, I ended up spending the rest of it watching the little chaffinches feeding away in the yard outside, which are fully protected in the UK, and the sparrows feeding away inside, which seem to be tolerated by the owner. Well, I guess they're not that big, so they can't eat that much. I did get a couple of half chances later on through the day, one at this jackdaw and another one at a magpie, that came and went so quick I never really got a shot off at them. I did try changing the decoy setup a bit to try and get the birds interested again, bringing the jackdaw in and setting out 2 magpies and even lifting the decoys in all together, but the birds had lost interest even though they were still about the yard somewhere. They had just twigged on big time that it was not good to be in front of that semi-open door. So, after a bit more fruitless waiting, I decided to head outside into the yard and see if I could find a more productive spot. And sure enough I did. It was a little overgrown corner beside a stream at the edge of the property that gave me a good view of the top of a very tall chestnut tree. This seemed to be very popular with the jackdaws. The only problem was it was 37 yards away and at a very steep angle. So it took me a good few practice shots at one of the tree branches to figure out my holdover. The problem was the wind. It kept switching back and forth what there was of it. So out of the 6 shots I think it was I took, I only dropped 3 birds, and 2 of them needed follow-up shots. So even though I wanted to impress the owner with a decent bag of jackdaws, I don't think this was the way to do it, and I'd be better coming back to this spot in a day with much less wind. Ah, close, but no cigar, hey. Well, that was about it for the morning. Oh, except for this bit. Well, maybe that'll knock some sense into me. Well folks, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I do intend to be back again. There's a little spot I found, real nice hidey hole that might work well with HW97, weather permitting. Plus the farmer was quite pleased with what I did get, so that was good news. But anyway, until then, look after yourselves and take care, hey.